I was 9 years old when I learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand up when everyone else is sitting down. Nobody imagined that what began as an ordinary school assembly would end with an entire auditorium in tears. But before I tell you what happened, before I tell you what they witnessed, let me take you back to where it all started. Before we continue, if stories like this inspire you, subscribe to the channel now so you don't miss the next ones. My name is Emma. I lived in a small town in Ohio where everybody knew everybody. The kind of place where people waved from their porches and left their doors unlocked. I was in 3rd grade at Lincoln Elementary, and life was pretty simple. Wake up, go to school, play during recess, go home. Nothing extraordinary. I had my group of friends, my favorite subjects, and my routine. But there was one person who made everything different. Her name was Maya. Maya had moved to our town 6 months earlier. She came from somewhere far away. I never knew exactly where, but she spoke with an accent that made some kids stare. She was quiet, kept to herself most of the time, and always sat in the back of the classroom. While other kids raised their hands eagerly to answer questions, Maya just looked down at her desk. While we ran around screaming during recess, she stayed near the fence, watching. I noticed her from the first day. Not because she was different, but because she seemed sad, really sad. The kind of sadness that sits heavy on small shoulders. I started sitting with her at lunch, not because anyone told me to, but because something inside me said I should. At first, she barely talked, just nodded when I asked questions. But slowly, day by day, she started opening up. She told me about her old home, about leaving everything behind, about missing her grandmother. She told me how hard it was to understand everything in English, how she studied late every night trying to keep up. She told me how some kids laughed at the way she pronounced certain words. And she told me she felt invisible, like she didn't matter to anyone. That's when we became real friends. Not the kind of friends who just play together at recess, but the kind who actually see each other. I started helping her with homework. She started teaching me words in her language. We'd draw pictures together during art class and make up stories about the characters we created. Maya had this incredible imagination. When she finally felt comfortable enough to share her ideas, they were beautiful, creative, full of color and life. But she was afraid to show anyone else. Afraid they'd laugh, afraid they'd judge. Our school had this tradition every spring, a big assembly where students could showcase their talents. Singing, dancing, playing instruments, reciting poetry, whatever they wanted. It was voluntary, and most kids loved it. They'd practice for weeks, excited to perform in front of the whole school, teachers, and parents. The auditorium would be packed, everyone dressed up. It was a big deal. That year, our teacher, Mrs. Peterson, announced the talent show during class. Kids immediately started buzzing with excitement, talking about what they'd do. Maya, as usual, stayed quiet. But I saw something in her eyes. A little spark, a little bit of hope mixed with fear. After class, I asked her if she wanted to do something together for the talent show. She looked at me like I just suggested we jump off a cliff. No way, she said. People would laugh at me. I tried to convince her that they wouldn't, that she was talented, that she had so much to share, but she just shook her head. I'm not like the other kids, Emma. I don't belong up there. Those words stuck with me. I don't belong up there. How could she think that? How could someone so smart, so creative, so kind, believe she didn't belong? But I understood. I understood because I'd seen how some kids treated her. The whispers when she answered a question in class. The way they'd mimic her accent when they thought she wasn't listening. The way they'd pick teams for games and leave her standing alone until the teacher made someone choose her. It wasn't always mean. Sometimes it was just thoughtless. But it hurt her. I could see it. I decided I wasn't going to let her feel that way anymore. I was going to find a way to show everyone who Maya really was. Not the quiet girl in the back, not the one with the accent, but Maya, the person, the friend, the one with dreams and fears and talents that nobody bothered to notice. I came up with a plan. I told Maya we should write a story together. Not to perform, just for fun. She liked that idea. We spent weeks working on it during lunch and after school. It was a story about a bird who didn't think she could fly because her feathers were a different color from all the other birds. But then she discovered that her unique feathers allowed her to fly higher than anyone else. Maya wrote most of it. Her words, her ideas, her heart poured onto those pages. It was beautiful, simple but beautiful. One afternoon, I asked her if she'd let me read it at the talent show. Just me reading, she wouldn't have to be on stage. She hesitated for a long time, biting her lip the way she did when she was nervous. Finally, she nodded. Okay, but just you reading it. I'm not going up there. I promise. The weeks leading up to the talent show flew by. Kids practiced their acts during recess. The school decorated the auditorium with banners and lights. Parents sent in permission slips and marked their calendars. I practiced reading our story out loud every night in my room, making sure I got every word, making sure I captured the emotion Maya put into it. But 3 days before the show, something happened. Something that changed everything. We were in the cafeteria at lunch, Maya and I sitting at our usual table near the window. A group of 5th graders sat at the table behind us, older kids who thought they owned the school. One of them, a boy named Tyler, was loud and always showing off. He was talking about the talent show, making fun of the acts he'd seen people practicing. His friends laughed at everything he said. Then he turned around and looked at our table. Hey, he said to Maya, are you doing something for the talent show? Talk in your funny language or something. His friends laughed. Maya's face turned red. She looked down at her food and didn't respond. I felt my chest tighten, that Tyler wasn't done. Oh wait, he said louder. Maybe you can show everyone how to be invisible. You're really good at that. More laughter. Maya's hands were shaking. I could see tears forming in her eyes, that she was fighting hard not to let them fall. I looked around the cafeteria. Teachers were at the other end, too far away to hear. Other kids were eating and talking, not paying attention. It was just us. Just Maya being humiliated while everyone else went on with their day. Something inside me snapped. I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. Tyler looked at me, surprised. What? He said, like I was the one being rude. I took a breath. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Leave her alone, I said. My voice came out stronger than I expected. Tyler smirked. Or what? You gonna cry about it? I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just looked at him and said, she's my friend. She's talented and kind. And just because she's different from you, doesn't mean you get to treat her like she doesn't matter. You should be embarrassed, not her. The cafeteria had gone quiet. Other kids were watching now. Tyler's smirk faded a little. His friends stopped laughing. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Tyler rolled his eyes and turned back to his table, mumbling something under his breath. But he didn't say anything else to Maya. The cafeteria slowly returned to normal, conversation starting up again, the moment passing. But Maya was still staring at me, her eyes wide. Nobody had ever stood up for her like that before. Nobody had ever said she mattered. When we walked back to class, she grabbed my hand and squeezed it tight. Thank you, she whispered. I didn't know what to say, so I just squeezed back. That night, Maya called me. It was the first time she'd ever called my house. Her voice was different on the phone, quieter but more determined. Emma, she said, I want to be on stage with you. I want to read the story with you, not just you reading it. Both of us, together. I was stunned. Are you sure? I asked. She took a long breath. Yes, I'm tired of being invisible. I'm tired of being scared. If you can stand up for me, I can stand up for myself. We practiced together for the next 2 days. Maya was nervous, her voice shaky at first, but she kept going. We divided the story so we'd each read parts. We practiced the timing, the pauses, the emotions. By the night before the show, we had it down, but I could tell Maya was terrified. What if I mess up? She asked me as we sat on my bedroom floor. What if people laugh? I looked at her. They won't laugh. And even if they do, we'll be up there together. You're not invisible, Maya. Not to me. Not to anyone who really sees you. The day of the talent show arrived. The auditorium was packed. Parents filled the seats. Teachers stood along the walls. Students sat cross-legged on the floor in front of the stage. The air smelled like popcorn from the concession stand outside. Everyone was excited, chatting loudly, programs rustling. I sat backstage with Maya, both of us in our nicest dresses, waiting for our turn. Other acts went on before her. A girl sang a pop song. A boy did a magic trick. A group of kids performed a dance routine. The audience clapped and cheered for everyone. Then it was our turn. Mrs. Peterson announced our names. Emma and Maya will now share an original story they wrote together. The curtain opened. The stage lights were bright, so bright I could barely see the audience. I heard the shuffle of people settling in to listen. I looked at Maya. She was frozen, her eyes wide with fear. I reached for her hand. Together, I whispered. She nodded. We walked to the center of the stage. The auditorium grew quiet. Hundreds of eyes on us, waiting. I started reading first. My part about the bird who felt different, who didn't think she belonged. My voice was steady, clear. I'd practiced this so many times. Then it was Maya's turn. She stepped forward slightly, holding the paper in both hands. Her hands were shaking. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. The silence stretched. I saw her panic rising. The audience started to shift uncomfortably. Someone coughed. I could feel the moment slipping away. If this story has already moved you so far, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, because there are other real and emotional stories you can't miss. But then Maya closed her eyes. She took a deep breath, and when she opened her eyes again, something had changed. She looked out at the audience, and she began to read. Her voice was soft at first, but it was there, real, present. She read about the bird discovering her unique feathers, about learning to trust herself, about finding the courage to fly. Her accent was there, yes, but it wasn't something to hide. It was part of her voice, part of her story, and it was beautiful. As she read, her voice grew stronger. The words flowed. The audience wasn't shifting anymore. They were listening, really listening. I watched faces in the crowd, parents leaning forward, teachers with soft smiles, kids sitting completely still, absorbed in the story. We reached the end together, reading the final lines in unison about the bird soaring higher than she ever thought possible, her different feathers catching the light, making her shine. When we finished, there was silence, complete silence. Maya and I stood there, holding hands, not sure what would happen next. Then someone started clapping, just one person at first, then another, and suddenly the entire auditorium erupted in applause. Not polite applause, real, thunderous standing ovation applause. People were on their feet. I saw parents wiping their eyes. I saw Mrs. Peterson clapping with tears streaming down her face. I saw kids cheering, actually cheering for us, for Maya. I looked at Maya. She was crying, but she was smiling too. The biggest smile I'd ever seen on her face. She wasn't invisible anymore. She wasn't the quiet girl in the back. She was standing in the middle of a stage, surrounded by light and sound and acceptance. She squeezed my hand so tight it almost hurt, but I didn't care. We'd done it, together. We walked off stage to more applause, more cheers. Backstage, kids we barely knew came up to congratulate us. That was amazing. Your story was so good. You guys were brave. Maya kept smiling, kept saying thank you in her soft voice, but I could see the transformation happening. The weight she'd been carrying was lifting. She stood a little taller, looked people in the eye a little more directly. After the show ended and parents were milling around taking pictures, Maya's mom found us. She hugged Maya tight, speaking to her in their language, and I saw that Maya was crying again, but happy tears. Her mum looked at me with so much gratitude in her eyes that I felt my own tears coming. "Thank you," she said in English, "for being her friend, for seeing her." I didn't know what to say, so I just hugged Maya again. That night at home, I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened, about how one moment of courage, hers and mine, had changed something fundamental, about how standing up, speaking out, refusing to let someone be invisible, actually mattered. My parents asked me about the show at dinner, and I tried to explain, but I couldn't quite capture it in words. It was bigger than just a performance. It was about being seen, about mattering, about friendship. The Monday after the talent show, something had shifted at school. Kids who'd never talked to Maya before started saying hi to her in the hallways. She got invited to sit at different lunch tables. Teachers called on her more in class, and she actually raised her hand to answer. She wasn't hiding anymore. She wasn't afraid anymore. Or maybe she was still afraid sometimes, but she was doing it anyway. That's real courage. Not the absence of fear, but moving forward despite it. Tyler, the boy from the cafeteria, never apologized directly, but he stopped making comments. Sometimes I'd catch him looking at Maya with something that might have been respect, or maybe just recognition that she was a person, not a target. Small progress, but progress. Maya and I stayed best friends. We wrote more stories together. She started sharing her ideas in class. She joined the art club and displayed her drawings in the school hallway. By the end of the year, she wasn't the new girl anymore. She was just Maya, part of our class, part of our community, belonging. But that day in the auditorium stayed with me. It taught me something I've carried ever since. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand beside someone who feels alone. That friendship isn't just about the fun times. It's about showing up when it's hard. That one person believing in you can change everything. And that we all have the power to make someone feel like they matter. Because they do. Every single person matters. Years later, when I was in high school, Maya and I were still close. She'd grown more confident, more outspoken, more herself. One day we were looking through old photos and we found a picture from that talent show. Both of us on stage holding hands, the stage lights bright behind us. Maya looked at the photo for a long time. Then she said something I'll never forget. You know what changed that day? It wasn't just that people clapped for us. It was that you saw me before anyone else did. You saw me when I couldn't even see myself. That's what gave me courage. Not the stage, not the story, but knowing someone believed I was worth standing beside. I felt tears prick my eyes. We were worth standing beside each other, I said. We still are. She smiled and hugged me tight. Thank you for being brave enough to be my friend when I needed one most. Looking back now, I realized that moment in 3rd grade was just the beginning. It wasn't the end of Maya's story, or mine. It was the foundation for something much bigger than either of us understood at the time. Because what happened next, what unfolded over the following years, showed me that one act of courage creates ripples that spread far beyond what you can see in the moment. By 4th grade, Maya had transformed completely. She walked through the hallways with her head up. She smiled at people. She participated in class discussions without that terrified look in her eyes. Teachers noticed. They started giving her leadership roles, asking her to help other students, recognizing the intelligence she'd been hiding all along. But more than that, she started helping other kids who felt left out. There was a boy named Marcus who stuttered badly and got teased for it. Maya sat with him at lunch one day, just like I'd done with her. She didn't make a big deal of it, didn't announce it to anyone. She just sat down and started talking to him like he was worth talking to, because he was. I watched this happen and felt something warm spread through my chest. She was paying it forward. The kindness I'd shown her, she was showing to someone else. And Marcus started changing too. Slowly, gradually, the same way Maya had. He joined conversations more. He stopped hiding in the bathroom during recess. He even volunteered to read aloud in class one day, stuttering through the passage but finishing it with his head held high. The teacher had tears in her eyes when he sat back down. So did I. By 5th grade, our little group had grown. It wasn't planned or organized. It just happened naturally. Kids who felt different or left out seemed to find each other, drawn together by something invisible but real. There was Marcus with his stutter. There was Jenny, whose family didn't have much money and wore the same clothes multiple times a week. There was David, who was extremely shy and barely spoke above a whisper. There was Kaisha, who'd been held back a year and felt stupid even though she wasn't. And there was Maya and me, the ones who'd started it all without meaning to. We became our own little community within the larger school. We sat together at lunch, chose each other for group projects, defended each other when necessary, but we didn't close ourselves off from everyone else. We were just there for each other, a safety net, a reminder that none of us had to face things alone. Other kids noticed. Some thought we were weird. Some didn't understand why we hung out together. But some, the ones who were paying attention, saw something different. They saw friendship that wasn't based on being cool or popular or fitting in. They saw loyalty. They saw acceptance. And slowly, a few of them started joining us too. Our school started to change in small ways. There was less teasing in the hallways. More kids sitting with different groups at lunch instead of sticking to strict social hierarchy. Teachers commented on it, said our grade seemed kinder than previous years, more inclusive. I don't think it was just because of us, but I like to believe we played a part. That the choice I made to sit with Maya that first day had created something bigger than just our friendship. It had created a model, an example, proof that choosing kindness actually worked. In 6th grade, middle school started. New building, new teachers, kids from other elementary schools mixing together. It was chaos at first. Everyone trying to figure out where they fit, who they'd be in this new environment. Maya and I had different homerooms, but we still found each other between classes, still ate lunch together, still did homework at each other's houses. Our friend group stayed intact despite the shuffle, and we welcomed new people as they found us. But 6th grade brought new challenges too. The social pressure increased. Kids started caring more about popularity, about who was cool and who wasn't. Cliques formed faster and harder than in elementary school. There was this girl named Ashley who seemed to rule the 6th grade from day one. She was pretty, confident, came from a wealthy family, and had that quality some people have where others just naturally follow them. She wasn't mean exactly, but she was exclusive. Her group only included certain types of people. The right clothes, the right background, the right everything. And if you weren't in her circle, you were invisible to her. She reminded me of the way some kids had treated Maya back in 3rd grade, except Ashley was more subtle about it. She didn't mock people openly. She just acted like they didn't exist. One day in October, our English teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, assigned a major group project. We had to create a presentation about a historical figure who'd made a difference in the world. She assigned the groups randomly, pulling names from a hat. When she called out my group, I heard Maya's name, which made me happy. But then I heard Ashley's name too. My stomach dropped. Ashley looked annoyed. I could see her whispering to her friend, probably complaining about being stuck with us. The first time our group met to work on the project, Ashley made her position clear. She showed up late, sat at the far end of the table from Maya and me, and spent most of the time texting on her phone. When we tried to discuss ideas, she barely responded. Finally, Maya suggested we research Malala Yousafzai, the girl who'd fought for education rights and survived being shot by the Taliban. I thought it was a perfect choice. Ashley looked up from her phone. "That's boring," she said flatly. "Everyone knows about her. Let's do someone more interesting." "Who?" I asked. She shrugged. "I don't know. Someone better." Maya's face fell. I felt anger rising in my chest. "Actually," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "I think Malala is a great choice. She stood up for what she believed in, even when it was dangerous. She used her voice to help people who couldn't speak for themselves." Ashley rolled her eyes. "Whatever. Do what you want. I probably won't be at the next meeting anyway. I have cheerleading practice." She gathered her things and left 10 minutes early. Maya and I sat there in silence for a moment. "She's not going to help at all, is she?" Maya said quietly. "Probably not," I admitted. "But we'll do it anyway. We'll make it amazing without her." Over the next 2 weeks, Maya and I threw ourselves into the project. We researched everything about Malala's life, her activism, her courage. We created a detailed presentation with slides, videos, quotes, and analysis. We practiced presenting it until we had it memorized. Ashley showed up to maybe one more meeting, contributed nothing, and made it clear she thought the whole thing was beneath her. The day before we had to present, she cornered us in the hallway. "So I'll just stand there while you guys talk, right?" she said. "I'm not reading anything." I felt that familiar tightness in my chest. That same feeling I'd had in the cafeteria when Tyler mocked Maya years ago. "Actually," I said, "you need to participate. It's a group grade." Ashley laughed. "Mrs. Rodriguez loves me. She won't fail me. Besides, you two seem to have it handled." She walked away without waiting for a response. That night, Maya called me upset. "It's not fair," she said. "We did all the work and she's going to get the same grade as us." "I know," I said. "But what can we do?" "Tell Mrs. Rodriguez," Maya suggested. I hesitated. That felt like tattling, like we couldn't handle it ourselves. But Maya was right. It wasn't fair. And letting Ashley get away with doing nothing wasn't actually helping anyone, including Ashley. Okay, I said. We'll talk to Mrs. Rodriguez tomorrow before class. The next morning, we arrived early and approached Mrs. Rodriguez's desk. She looked up with her warm smile. Good morning, girls. Ready for your presentation? We explained the situation, how Ashley hadn't helped, how she'd dismissed our ideas, how she'd refused to participate. Mrs. Rodriguez's expression grew serious. She listened carefully, asked a few questions, thanked us for telling her. During class, when it was our group's turn to present, Maya and I delivered our presentation. We spoke clearly, passionately, explaining why Malala's story mattered, why her courage had changed the world. Ashley stood off to the side looking bored, checking her phone when she thought Mrs. Rodriguez wasn't looking. When we finished, the class applauded. Several students said it was the best presentation they'd seen. Mrs. Rodriguez thanked us, made some notes, and called the next group. After class, she asked Ashley to stay behind. Maya and I didn't hear what was said, but we saw Ashley's face turn red. She stormed out of the classroom looking furious. For the rest of the day, she glared at us in the hallways, whispered to her friends while looking our way, made it clear she was angry. Her friends started giving us dirty looks too. By lunch, we'd been effectively marked as enemies of the popular group. Some kids who'd been friendly with us suddenly kept their distance, not wanting to get on Ashley's bad side. I won't lie. It hurt. Being excluded, having people whisper about you, feeling like you did something wrong when you were just trying to be fair. For a moment, I wondered if we should have just let it go, just let Ashley coast on our work to avoid the drama. But then I looked at Maya sitting across from me at lunch, and I remembered why we'd spoken up. Because silence in the face of unfairness doesn't help anyone. Because standing up for what's right matters more than being popular. Because we'd learned years ago that being seen and valued was more important than fitting in. Still, the next few weeks were hard. Ashley's group made middle school social dynamics difficult. They'd talk loudly about parties we weren't invited to. They'd laugh when we walked by. They'd exclude us from conversations and group activities. Some kids in our friend group started wavering, wondering if it was worth it to stick with us, if it meant being on the outside of the popular circle. One afternoon, Jenny pulled me aside between classes. She looked uncomfortable. Emma, she said, maybe we should just apologize to Ashley. Say it was a misunderstanding or something. It would make things easier. I understood where she was coming from. Being excluded was painful, especially in middle school when social acceptance felt like everything. But I also knew that apologizing for doing the right thing would send the wrong message. To ourselves and to everyone watching. I looked at Jenny. We didn't do anything wrong, I said gently. Ashley did. If we apologize, we're saying it's okay for people to take credit for work they didn't do. We're saying popularity matters more than honesty. Do you really believe that? Jenny bit her lip. She looked torn. Finally, she shook her head. No, I don't believe that. But it's just hard, you know? I know, I said. But hard doesn't mean wrong. She nodded slowly, then hugged me. Okay, I'm with you. The rest of our group felt the same way. When it came down to it, they chose integrity over popularity. They chose our friendship over social status. And that meant more than any party invitation or popular kids' approval ever could. About a month after the presentation incident, something unexpected happened. There was a school assembly about bullying and inclusion. The counselor showed videos, gave statistics, talked about the importance of standing up for each other. At the end, she asked if anyone wanted to share a personal experience. The auditorium was silent. Nobody wanted to volunteer, especially not in front of the whole school. But then someone stood up. It was Marcus, the boy who stuttered, who Maya had befriended years ago. He walked to the microphone with shaky hands. The counselor smiled at him encouragingly. Marcus took a breath and started talking. He stuttered through some words, but he kept going. He told the story of how he used to hide during lunch, how kids mocked him, how he felt worthless because of something he couldn't control. Then he told them about Maya sitting with him one day, treating him like he mattered. He told them how that one act of kindness changed everything for him, how it gave him courage, how it made him believe he was worth something. His voice cracked with emotion, but he finished his story. When I look around this school now, He said, "I see a lot of people who just want to fit in, who just want to be accepted. And I see a few people who make that possible, who choose kindness over popularity, who stand up even when it's hard. Those are the people who really matter. Those are the people who change lives." The auditorium was completely silent when he sat down. Then slowly, one person started clapping, then another, then everyone. I looked at Maya and saw tears streaming down her face. I grabbed her hand. Marcus had just told our entire school what real friendship looked like, what courage looked like, and he'd named Maya as the person who'd shown him. After the assembly, something shifted. Kids who'd been following Ashley's lead started questioning it. Why were they excluding people who'd actually done something good? Why were they following someone who valued popularity over kindness? It wasn't an overnight change, but cracks appeared in the social hierarchy. Some of Ashley's friends started drifting away. Some started sitting with different groups at lunch. Some even approached us to apologize for how they'd acted. Ashley herself never apologized, that she stopped actively making our lives difficult. She seemed to realize that her power came from people caring what she thought, and fewer people cared anymore. By the end of 6th grade, the social landscape had shifted. Our group wasn't popular in the traditional sense, but we were respected. People knew we stood for something real, and that mattered more than any status symbol ever could. That summer, Maya's family invited me to visit her grandmother in the state where they used to live. It was the first time I'd traveled without my parents, and I was nervous but excited. Maya's grandmother lived in a small apartment filled with photos and the smell of spices I didn't recognize. She hugged me tight the moment we arrived, speaking in her language, but making me feel welcome without needing translation. Over dinner that night, Maya's grandmother asked her questions about school, about friends, about life. Maya told her everything, about the talent show years ago, about standing up to Ashley, about our friend group and how it had grown. Her grandmother listened with tears in her eyes, then turned to me. She spoke in English, heavily accented but clear. "You gave my granddaughter something I could not give her from far away," she said. "You gave her belonging. You gave her courage. You showed her she matters. I will never forget this gift you gave our family." I felt tears welling up. I didn't know what to say. Maya reached over and squeezed my hand, and in that moment, surrounded by the warmth of her family and the smell of home-cooked food and the weight of genuine gratitude, I understood something profound. Friendship isn't just about having fun together or sharing interests. Real friendship is about seeing someone fully, accepting them completely, and standing beside them, especially when it's hard. That's what changes lives. That's what matters. And that night, in Maya's grandmother's apartment, I realized our story wasn't finished. In fact, it was just beginning to show its true impact. 7th grade brought a new challenge I never saw coming. Our school started a peer mentoring program where older students helped younger kids adjust to middle school. Maya and I both signed up immediately. We remembered how hard it had been, how scary and overwhelming. We wanted to help other kids feel less alone. They paired us with incoming 6th graders who were struggling with the transition. My mentee was a quiet girl named Sophia who barely made eye contact and ate lunch alone every day. Maya got paired with a boy named James who had a learning disability and was terrified he'd be made fun of. The first few sessions were awkward. Sophia answered my questions with one-word responses. She clearly didn't want to be there, didn't trust me, didn't think anything I said would help. I recognized that look. I'd seen it on Maya's face years ago. So I stopped asking questions and just started talking. I told her about my own experiences, about being scared of not fitting in, about watching my best friend suffer, about learning that courage isn't the absence of fear but doing things anyway. Slowly, over weeks, Sophia started opening up. She told me her parents were going through a divorce. She told me she'd left all her friends at her old school. She told me she felt like starting over was impossible. I listened, really listened. Then I introduced her to Maya and our friend group. Within a month, Sophia was sitting with us at lunch. Within 2 months, she was laughing and joking and participating in conversations. By the end of the semester, she'd made friends outside our group too. She wasn't the scared, isolated girl anymore. She was just Sophia, finding her place. Maya had similar success with James. She helped him with homework, defended him when kids made comments, showed him that his learning disability didn't define him. James started believing in himself. His grades improved. He joined the chess club. He smiled more. Our teachers noticed. The counselor noticed. At the end of the year, they asked Maya and me if we'd be willing to help expand the mentoring program, maybe even speak to the school board about why it mattered. We said yes. In August, before 8th grade started, we found ourselves sitting in front of a room full of adults in suits, school board members who controlled budgets and programs. I was terrified. These were important people, decision makers, and we were just kids. But Maya looked at me before we went in and said something I'll never forget. Remember when we stood on that stage in 3rd grade? We were terrified then too, but we did it anyway. And it mattered. This matters too. We walked into that boardroom holding hands, just like we'd walked onto that stage years ago. We told them our story, not as a rehearsed presentation, but as the truth. We told them how a simple act of friendship had changed both our lives, how it had rippled outward to change other lives, how their mentoring program had given us a way to turn our experience into something that helped more kids. We told them about Sophia and James and all the other students who benefited. We showed them statistics on how mentored students had better attendance, better grades, fewer disciplinary issues. But more than that, we showed them the human side, the real impact. The lives changed. When we finished, the room was silent. Then one board member, an older woman with grey hair, stood up. She walked over to us with tears in her eyes. When I was a girl, she said, nobody stood up for me. Nobody sat with me at lunch. Nobody made me feel like I mattered. I wish I'd had friends like you two. I wish I'd had a program like this. You've reminded me why I got into education in the first place. To help children feel seen and valued. Thank you. The board voted unanimously to expand the mentoring program. They increased funding, added more mentors, made it a core part of the school's culture. Maya and I walked out of that meeting knowing we'd done something real, something that would help kids we'd never even meet. 8th grade was our last year of middle school. We'd gone from scared 3rd graders to confident young women who weren't afraid to stand up for what mattered. Our friend group had grown to include dozens of kids, a diverse mix of personalities and backgrounds united by mutual respect and acceptance. We weren't a clique that excluded others. We were a community that welcomed anyone who needed it. Ashley, the girl who'd given us so much trouble in 6th grade, had changed too. She'd lost her tight grip on social hierarchy and actually seemed happier for it. One day in the spring, she approached Maya and me in the hallway. Can I talk to you? She asked, looking uncomfortable. We nodded. She took a breath. I wanted to apologize for how I treated you guys, for the group project and everything after. I was focused on the wrong things, being popular, being in control, being someone I thought people wanted me to be. But watching you two these past couple years, watching how people actually respect you, how you've made a real difference, I realized I was doing it all wrong. I was stunned. Maya looked equally surprised. Ashley continued, you stood up for what was right, even when it cost you socially. You helped people who couldn't help you back. You chose kindness over popularity every time, and you ended up with something I never had. Real friendships, real respect, real impact. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, and I admire what you've built here. Maya spoke first. Thank you for saying that. That takes courage. Ashley smiled sadly. Not as much courage as you two have shown. Anyway, I just wanted you to know. She walked away before we could respond further. Maya and I looked at each other. Did that just happen? Maya asked. I laughed. I think it did. We never became close friends with Ashley, but we developed a mutual respect. She started participating in the mentoring program. She stopped being exclusive and judgmental. She grew into a better version of herself, the same way we all were trying to do. In May, near the end of 8th grade, our school held an award ceremony for graduating middle schoolers. They gave out academic awards, athletic awards, various recognitions. At the end, the principal stood up. She said there was one more award to give, one they'd created specifically for this year. It's called the Impact Award, she announced. It goes to students who've made a significant positive difference in our school community. Students who've shown that kindness and courage matter more than popularity or status. Students who've built something lasting and meaningful. This year, the recipients are Maya Rodriguez and Emma Thompson. We walked to the stage in complete shock. The auditorium erupted in applause. Not just polite applause, but genuine enthusiasm. Students we knew and students we didn't. Teachers, parents, everyone standing and cheering. The principal handed us a plaque and asked if we wanted to say anything. Maya looked at me. Together, she whispered. Always, I said. We stood at that microphone, the same one Marcus had used during the bullying assembly, and looked out at the crowd. I spoke first. When I was 9 years old, I made a choice. I chose to sit with someone who was eating lunch alone. I didn't think it was a big deal. I just thought it was the right thing to do. But that one choice led to a friendship that changed my life. That led to more friendships. That led to a community. That led to programs helping dozens of students. All because of one choice. Maya took over, and I learned that being seen matters more than anything else. When Emma sat with me that first day, she saw me when I felt invisible. She stood up for me when I couldn't stand up for myself. She showed me I was worth standing beside. And that gave me the courage to do the same for others. That's what we want everyone here to know. You have that power too. The power to see someone, to choose kindness, to stand up, to make someone feel like they matter. Because they do. Every single person matters. We finished together. Thank you for letting us be part of this community. Thank you for joining us in choosing kindness. And thank you for showing us that one small act of courage can create ripples that spread further than you ever imagine. The applause when we finished was deafening. I saw parents crying. I saw teachers hugging each other. I saw students looking thoughtful, like maybe they were thinking about their own choices, their own power to make a difference. Sophia, my mentee, was in the front row sobbing happy tears. James, Maya's mentee, was standing and cheering louder than anyone. Marcus, who'd started this journey with us years ago, gave us a thumbs up and mouthed thank you. That moment, standing on that stage with Maya, holding that plaque, surrounded by the community we'd helped build, I realized something profound. We'd started out as two scared kids trying to survive middle school. We'd become young women who'd learned that surviving isn't enough. Thriving means lifting others up. It means choosing courage over comfort. It means standing up even when your knees are shaking. High school brought new challenges and new opportunities. Maya and I went to the same school and immediately joined the peer counseling program. We helped establish a buddy system for new students. We started a club focused on inclusion and anti-bullying initiatives. Our impact continued to grow. But more importantly, we watched as other students took up the torch. Kids we'd mentored started mentoring others. The culture of kindness and acceptance we'd worked to build spread beyond us, became something bigger than us, something sustainable. That's when I realized the most important lesson of all. You don't have to be perfect to make a difference. You don't have to be popular or powerful or special. You just have to care. You just have to see people. You just have to be willing to stand up when it matters. By junior year, Maya and I were invited to speak at other schools about our experiences. We shared our story dozens of times to hundreds of students, and every time we saw the same thing. Kids listening, really listening, seeing themselves in our story, realizing they had power too, realizing one choice, one act of kindness, one moment of courage could change everything. We heard back from some of those schools months later. They told us about new friendships that had formed, about kids who'd been isolated finding community, about cultures shifting toward inclusion and acceptance. Our story had become a catalyst, a spark that lit fires in other places. Senior year, Maya and I both applied to colleges with strong education programs. We wanted to become teachers, counselors, people who could help kids navigate the hardest years of their lives. We wanted to take what we learned and make it our life's work. We got accepted to the same university and decided to be roommates. The journey that had started with me sitting next to a lonely girl at lunch had become a partnership, a mission, a lifelong commitment to making sure no kid ever felt as invisible as Maya once had. Our graduation speech at the high school ceremony was simple. We thanked our teachers, our families, our friends, but mostly we talked about the power of seeing each other, about choosing to sit with someone eating alone, about standing up when it's easier to stay silent, about believing that every person has value and making sure they know it. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel and comment below which part moved you the most. And before you leave, there's a recommended video right here that will give you chills. Watch it now. Looking back now, years later, I can trace a direct line from that first day in 3rd grade to the woman I became. Maya can too. We often talk about it, about how different our lives could have been if I'd walked past her table that day, if I'd chosen the easy path, if I'd stayed silent when she was mocked. But I didn't, and she didn't either. She found her courage and used it to help others find theirs. That's the thing about courage. It's contagious. When you see someone stand up, it makes you believe you can stand up too. When you experience kindness, you want to pass it on. When you feel seen, you start seeing others. That's how change happens. Not through grand gestures or dramatic moments, though those have their place, but through daily choices. Small acts, simple kindness, consistent courage. The girl who defended her friend in front of an adult audience and earned applause. That was Maya, but I was the girl who sat down first. And together, we learned that friendship isn't just about being there for the good times. It's about being there especially when it's hard. It's about seeing someone fully and choosing to stand beside them anyway. It's about believing in people before they believe in themselves. It's about creating spaces where everyone feels like they belong, because they do. Every single person belongs. Every single person matters. Every single person deserves to be seen. That's the lesson I learned at 9 years old, sitting with a lonely girl at lunch. That's the lesson that changed my life and hers and countless others. And that's the lesson I hope you'll take with you today. Look around, see people, really see them, then choose to stand beside them. Choose kindness. Choose courage. Choose to make someone feel like they matter. Because that choice, that simple choice, might just change everything. What part of this story moved you the most? Do you believe everyone has hidden courage inside them waiting to be unlocked? Have you ever stood up for someone when it was hard? What lesson will you take from this story into your own life? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.